The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health.
Morning, everybody, and welcome to What's Happening in Health. So grateful you are sharing part of your Sunday with us. Got a great 90 minutes of health and healing coming up today, beginning with, do you remember Blink? Well, that was a great light show here in the tri-state, but getting injured at Blink, yeah, not so great. So you know who knows about that? Mary Carol Melton, hello to you. Dr. Todd Kelly, they are here from the Christ Hospital to share how getting the right care for an injury at Blink or anywhere else can make a big difference when that happens. Glad to have you in-house. And a local researcher has launched a startup through the Venture Lab program at the University of Cincinnati. It allows surgeons to actually hold a 3D replica model of a patient's heart or something else in their hands before performing surgery. Here to tell us all about it, we welcome Dr. Prashan Ravi. He is here to tell us about this invention, why it's called a very unique name, and how it can help in healing. But first, you probably know that May is Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And as we head into the season of sunshine and these warmer months, dermatologists remind us of the importance of skin protection. It's hard to believe something we are so glad to see, the sunshine, could even have potential for harm. But Dr. Elizabeth Munich of Dermatology and Skincare Associates in Westchester says if you are going to be outside for any length of time,
you just have to be careful and sun protect. It's a combination, I think, of environment and sun exposure. So if you're out in the sun and you're not using good sunscreen, you're definitely at higher risk.
That risk can also be influenced by everything from your family history to your skin shade.
Yes, it's interesting because if you have fair skin, you're just more susceptible to UV.
If you do have a surface skin cancer, it's also important to note that there's new technology to help treat it. Dr. Munich, one of the few in the country to treat with a machine like this. It uses what's called image-guided superficial radiation therapy. It's a non-surgical way to remove the cancer.
So she does an ultrasound of the area. She can see where the tumor is, and we can get an idea of how deep it is and the new healthy tissue growing in, so we can actually watch the tumor shrink.
It shrinks the tumor using low levels of X-ray energy over several treatments with a precise dose until it's gone.
The cone goes on the diseased skin once she is prepped and ready, and it's just like a 30 to 40 second treatment.
In most cases, this therapy is covered by medical insurance plans. For more information, you can call the team at Dermatology and Skincare Associates 513-770-3263. In Healthy on the Go, also topping our show today, a new on-demand service can help if you need to get to the doctor's office or to the grocery store or some other part of the tri-state. It's now being piloted or tested in certain parts of the tri-state, including Springdale and Sharonville. It is called Metro Now, and it allows you to be picked up within those neighborhoods and go to a specific place. Brad Mason of the Metro team joined us on our What's Happening in Health show last week to tell us more about this program.
In early June, we are going to expand into the Forest Park area, so all across that northern area where there's larger populations that maybe our current service isn't serving quite as well, we are able to utilize Metro Now for that.
Trips can be scheduled through the Metro Now app or by calling 513-551-5555. All right, just ahead, a new poll on puberty, what parents need to know, and getting the right care right away. Mary Carol Melton, Dr. Todd Kelly, both here from the Christ Hospital Health Network. They'll join us next on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Metro and Gastro Health.
In legal medicine, there is a new plan to phase out certain artificial dyes. It's not a formal ban, but it mainly relies on the food industry to voluntarily take initiative.
We'd like to see them out of the U.S. food supply, ideally by the end of next year. Many companies have said they can do that, and we're hoping many more companies will join that.
Now, according to the Food and Drug Administration, the plan includes revoking authorization for 2 food colorings in the coming months and authorizing some new natural color additives in the next few weeks. The FDA says it also plans to work with the food industry to cut out other synthetic dyes and ask companies to bump up the 2027-28 required deadline to remove FD&C red dye number 3. Right now, the FDA allows 36 food color additives, including 8 synthetic dyes. In Healthy Conditions today, new poll finds parents are putting off having a conversation with children about puberty. About half said they would talk to tweens about what happens in the body as it changes, but 5% of parents said they are avoiding this conversation altogether. Researchers say putting this off or putting the talk off with you and your tween could put them at a disadvantage.
It's really important for parents to remember that you want to start this conversation before you see the changes. It's important to help your child understand what to expect. And even if those changes aren't happening with your particular child, they're likely seeing them in some of their classmates. So having a general conversation about the kinds of physical and emotional changes that are going to happen helps your child feel reassured that everything is normal and at some point in time it's going to happen to them too.
They make it sound so simple, don't they? 1 in 6 parents say they've started seeing signs of puberty in their children between the ages of 7 and 9 years old. All right, on now to our wonderful team here with the Christ Hospital Health Network. Tell us who you are.
I'm Mary Carol Melton, lifelong Cincinnatian.
And are you a patient at the Christ Hospital, or were you?
I was a patient at the Christ Hospital. Fortunately, I was a patient of Dr. Kelly's.
And tell us a little bit about your work.
Hi, I'm Todd Kelly with Orthopedics at Christ Hospital. I do mainly hip and knee replacements, but do take some call and trauma call there as well.
Well, we were intrigued by this because all of us knew about Blink.
Yes.
And the team at Christ said, yeah, we had this poor person that got injured there, got to us right away, got good care. So we have a little Blink video we want to show, but first tell me what happened.
So my husband and I decided pretty much last minute that we wanted to go down to Blink. We'd been before, we love it. It's a great thing for Cincinnati. We had only been there about 15 minutes and I was walking along the street and I walked up on a curb, which was a pretty big curb. And out of nowhere, and I know the woman did not see me, this was not intentional, bumped me, and she had a large baby carriage, and I don't even think she could see over it. So she bumped me off the curb, and it all happened so fast. I mean, my husband said he could still see me going down, and I landed on the street on my right hip. And I knew immediately when they tried to get me up that something was seriously wrong.
Did it hurt?
Like almost nothing I've ever experienced. It was pretty painful. It was pretty painful.
So people don't realize that when you have an injury at Blink or anywhere else and you get picked up in an ambulance, they say, where do you want to go, right?
That was the first question, and my first answer was Christ Hospital.
Oh, good for you. A little history there. You said you've been helpful or been working with their AED program.
I have. They've been incredibly helpful with a program that the Sheriff's Office has done with the Rotary Club of Cincinnati called Project Heart Restart. And we were able to equip AEDs in all the sheriff deputy cars, and now it's expanded to throughout Hamilton County and into northern Kentucky. It's been an incredible program, and Christ Hospital has been just a stalwart leader in that project with us.
Yeah, we've had the privilege of following that. We should mention you're a consultant for the Sheriff's Office, so you're busy, you need those hips to work. So you get the call even in Blink?
Right, even in Blink.
And what kind of an injury did she have?
Well, so she broke her hip. It was called a femoral neck fracture, and there's a few different ways we can try to fix it. But because she's so healthy and active, we offer her what's called a total hip replacement, which gives her longevity, and it's the best outcome for folks who are healthy and going to go another good 20 years or so.
Thank you, doctor.
Yeah, really. Yeah. So we have a little office video of you, but you didn't really have the luxury of seeing her in the office ahead of time. You get
Correct.
her as she needs emergency care.
Correct. We see her in the hospital room, and we kind of talk through the options. And Christ Hospital is fantastic with this because we do a lot of joint replacements there. Christ Hospital is accredited by the Joint Commission and has an advanced certification for joint replacement. So our anesthesia team, our nurses, our staff in the office, we do a lot of these, and we typically have good outcomes. So we were able to offer her a total hip replacement. Anesthesia was kind of some light sedation, and she did fabulous with it.
Now, those are not new, but the technology has gotten better. So tell me a little bit about what you evaluated to make sure she got kind of a good fit and the right implant and that kind of thing?
Right, so during the surgery, we can take an x-ray, basically a live x-ray during the surgery, so we try to recreate her anatomy before it was broken and crooked. We try to just put it back where the good Lord had started it, right? And so, when we take out the broken part, we can take some measurements, on the x-ray, and then it's just like going to a shoe store. We have different sizes of the implants that fit in the bone. We've got them all in stock right on the back wall, and so we find something that fits and recreates her anatomy.
Now, one of the things I know is that if you don't get a good fit, you don't feel very good after this happens. So how have you been, and what's the recovery been like?
I told Dr. Kelly, I've been sort of amazed at how quickly I have recovered. Of course, I did everything they told me to do. I had physical therapy at home for several weeks, but I was up walking with a cane within 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. And but it's really important to do all of the physical therapy, all of the exercises. And in the beginning, it's not pleasant. I mean, it hurts a little bit, but if I would tell anybody anything, it's like do everything you can to keep, to begin to get the movement back in your leg. And I would say I'm doing fabulously. I'm 6 months out, and I'm doing great.
Running marathons and stuff yet?
I haven't tried the marathon yet, but my work feels like a marathon sometimes, so I'm up, I'm active, I'm traveling, I'm doing everything I've done that I was able to do before.
Any pain?
No, I really don't have any pain. None. Occasionally, somebody said when the weather turns, I might have a slight ache, but no.
I have that though.
I really don't have any pain with it.
Our meteorologists joke that you can tell the forecast.
The weather, yes, right, exactly.
So is that common if she gets the right care and gets the right follow-up that it's not as painful of a process?
Yeah, physical therapy is important. I think the thing that's most important for her was just being so healthy and active going into this. It just gave her the opportunity to heal very well.
I always tell people, I eat right and exercise, but even if I get something, then my body's kind of prepared to go to war. I hope I'm always healthy, but you never know.
Yeah.
And so I think when you are caring for you don't think about the fact that you might need to heal like this someday.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So final thought, what do you feel like the most important thing is if you, end up in an emergency situation like this? Is there one question you should ask, or what would you want to know as a hip patient?
Yeah, I think just ask about your options, because there's different fracture patterns that happen when you break your hip, and so it's not always going to be a hip replacement surgery. It may be trying to fix it with screws, it may be trying to fix it with a screw and rod construct, or even a partial hip replacement. Some people choose not to do any surgery, and that decision is right for them. So it's all individual.
Yeah. Well, good to know. We're so glad you're well.
Yes, thank you.
We look forward to seeing you running the streets when it's
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your great
so
work.
much.
It's a pleasure to hear about it.
Thanks, Liz.
All right, just ahead, it's a nasty illness you can get from mosquitoes, and it is on the rise. We share how to protect against it. And Dr. Prashant Ravi here, he's with the 1819 Venture Lab, got some really cool stuff he's going to show us, some medical models, they're called, in 3D. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Area Development District.
In high-tech health today, exposure to a bacterial toxin called colobactin could be triggering an increase in colorectal cancer in younger people. Colobactin can alter DNA. In an analysis of hundreds of cases, scientists at UC San Diego found it was 3 times more common for patients younger than 40 than in those diagnosed after age 70. The scientists say that they believe the damage may happen within the first 10 years of life, but they don't know yet how children are being exposed or how to stop it. In your healthy future today, a warning from the CDC about an illness on the rise that you can get from mosquito bites. It's one any of us can encounter if, like Scott, you love
just anything I can to be out, especially if I'm by the water. That's great.
Being in the great outdoors and around water. Dr. Stephen Blatt, the medical director of Ohio's Tri-Health Infectious Diseases, told me it's a mosquito-borne illness called dengue fever. It's reported most in popular tourist destinations, according to the CDC, such as the Caribbean, Central America, South America, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific Islands.
Although it's starting to come into the southern U.S. as well, there are cases of dengue that are acquired here in Florida and Texas and Arizona as well.
The symptoms can be pretty severe, and if you're immune compromised, it could lead to a need for a hospital stay.
It gives you a high fever, makes your muscles and bones hurt, and it can be so severe that sometimes patients will start having bleeding complications and die from it.
The CDC just issued a health alert about dengue fever. There's been a 15% surge in cases of it worldwide compared to the previous 5-year average. There is a vaccine to protect against it, but Dr. Blatt says
the best way to prevent it is to not get mosquito bites. So if you're traveling in these areas, you should make sure that you cover up in the evening when the mosquitoes are out, make sure that you wear mosquito repellent, and be cautious about getting mosquito bites.
And one other note, the Tri-Health team has a travel vaccine and preventive care clinic. You can find out about preventing this illness or any others that you might need if you have vacation plans to some of these destinations. Dengue fever is really risky, so they ask that you call 513-862-8222. All right, on now to our wonderful friends from the 1819 Innovation Hub Venture Lab. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Dr. Prashant Ravi, CEO and co-founder of Meteora 3D and also research faculty at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine.
So Meteora 3D is what?
Meteora 3D is a startup, it's a medical 3D printing startup. We're commercializing fast 3D printing technology for healthcare.
And just for people not familiar with this hub and what they do to support you and that kind of thing?
So the 1819 Innovation Hub is a place where entrepreneurs and innovators can take their idea from a very early stage to the marketplace. And Meteora 3D underwent a similar journey with them, starting with the very early pre-accelerator idea phase of the company. And now we have our prototypes that we are testing at hospitals, and we will be launching our product in the near future.
So I'm told it's amazing to get that kind of support. Yeah. And I asked you, what was the name, or what did the name come from your company?
So Meteora comes from the Meteora village in Greece. And Meteora in Greek stands for rising from the ground and hanging lofty. So kind of like a meteor. And our technology that Meteora 3D is developing works in a similar way, where the model rises up from a pool of liquid, essentially. And that's why we named it Meteora 3D.
All right, so we are looking at these really cool things. I want to have you point out, what are we seeing? How do you use them?
So this is a model for planning minimally invasive coronary artery bypass. A lot of people might know somebody who underwent a bypass surgery. So this model is a half-scale model of a real patient, and this helps the cardiothoracic surgeon plan kind of the entry point where to make the incision in the chest, and ensures really good outcomes in the procedure.
So my understanding is, and we'll have you describe sort of what each of these are, but that you 3D print, but then you make a model from that.
Exactly. So this is based on the CT scan of a patient, and there is a lot of steps involved in getting to a model like this. But essentially, it involves segmenting the anatomy from the CT scan and working with the surgeon to kind of understand his or her pain points and giving them a model that makes their job easier, essentially. Instead of having to figure it out from the CT scan themselves, this model makes it really intuitive for them to understand what to do during the surgery.
Okay, so just kind of give me the run through. What am I looking at here?
So this is another model. This was made for an interventional radiologist. So these are vessels inside the liver, and this is kind of the main vein inside the body, the inferior vena cava. And this helps the interventional radiologist navigate his needle to perform what's called a shunting procedure in order to relieve pressure from the liver. So that's another kind of model. This is a model of a jaw, as you can tell. It has a benign tumor here and also an impacted tooth in black. You can see kind of the nerve that runs really close to these structures. And so this model really helps them plan how to excise and remove that tumor without damaging the nearby structures, including the nerve in this case. This is an interesting model. This was made for a atrial fibrillation hybrid procedure in which the surgeon will clip the left upper chamber of the heart that you see here in red. And this is basically to treat long-standing atrial fibrillation, where the chambers of the heart kind of beat out of sync, out of rhythm. And this one here is actually a model also for an interventional radiologist. This is a filter inside the main vein of the body, and this filter helps clots from the lower extremity of the body entering the lungs and the heart. And you can actually see some of the structures inside that have been filtered, by this IVC filter.
Wow, those are remarkable. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking what a difference that could make if that's my heart or my liver.
Absolutely.
Is that sort of the goal?
The goal is to ensure the patient gets a better outcome at the end. And these kind of complex cases are difficult for the surgeon to plan just by looking at the CT scan. And these models make a world of a difference because they tell the surgeon exactly what they need to do. And it also helps them communicate to the patient what they're going to do, because for a patient to look at a CT scan and understand what's happening is really challenging. So this is an excellent communication tool for that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. All right, last thing. I know we have a little video of your lab and whatnot. Where are we now and where do we go from here?
So we have our prototypes that we are actively testing with local hospitals, and we are looking at raising venture capital money in order to scale our prototype and launch in the market in the near future.
All right, so if you're out there and you're watching and you're thinking, we can help the people we see in those labs that do things like this, we will put a link to all of this at what'shappeninginhealth.com. It is just really fascinating to share your work. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you, Liz.
That's some cool stuff. All right, just ahead, what kind of things can get in the way of losing weight? We'll tell you more next here on What's Happening in Health. Want to leave you with Weight No More today. Trying to shed some pounds, but you're not seeing results? Well, the problem might be not your effort, but other habits, according to a new report. It's a common misconception that the more you exercise and the less you eat, the faster you lose weight. But studies show that's not always the case. Over-exercising can lead to fatigue, it can increase hunger, and that can lead to overeating. And cutting back on calories severely can get you to binge, and that throws your hormones off balance. Experts do recommend something in the middle: consistent meals, mindful movement, and rest. Small challenges and sustainable habits, they say, often lead to the biggest results. All right, just ahead, we hear from doctors at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They are changing lives for parents who've had babies exposed to opioids in the womb. Breakthrough research in our next half hour on What's Happening in Health.
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by Mayfield Brain & Spine.
Morning, everybody. Welcome back to our second half hour here on What's Happening in Health. So grateful you're staying with us today. Got a great rest of the show for you. We are going to begin with the team at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. We want to welcome to our show Dr. Stephanie Merhar. She is a neonatologist who is here, and we are so grateful. She just did some new research on babies exposed to opioids in the womb. Her results are remarkable. We can't wait to share them just ahead. And the behavioral health hospital team also making a big difference in our community. They are from Glenwood Behavioral Health. And since May, of course, is Mental Health Awareness Month, we want to welcome Medical Director Dr. Renee Coatwell and Julia Tafamambe. They are both here to help us all stay well. But first, a quick headline for you this half hour. If you have neck or back pain, you may want to ask a physical therapist about dry needling. This is the team from Mayfield Brain & Spine in Westchester. We talked to that team there about what this is and why it may work.
It is a small, fine needle that goes into tighter muscle groups, and it helps bring more blood flow to the muscle, helps reduce muscle tension or spasm. It breaks the skin and then into the muscle, goes down deep. basically your brain interprets it as a micro trauma, so it tells your body to send more blood flow to the area.
If you are interested in finding out a little bit more about this, you can call the physical therapy team at 513-221-1100 at Mayfield Brain and Spine. On now to our top story this half hour. It is in what we hope you know about your mental health each week. Recent survey of 1,000 workers across several industries found job stress, workplace pressure, and financial strain. Just a few of the things now contributing to more substance use at work. And it's not just the usual addictions helping us cope at the office anymore, such as drugs or alcohol, where you might even notice or smell a problem. According to behavioral health specialist Dr. Chris Toole of Ohio's Lindner Center of Hope, he says now that pornography and gambling are available online, these too may be some of what provides a coping mechanism in a stressed out day.
Maybe I'm going to my phone and placing bets at work, same kind of thing. The brain really doesn't care what it is. And there's no way to smell a bad hand when somebody's gambling, right? So those issues can be just as problematic as well.
The survey found nearly 7 in 10 of those who are Gen Z or millennials use a substance on a weekly or daily basis to cope with stress at work. And 1 in 3 millennials and 1 in 4 Gen Zers reported increased substance use because of fear of layoffs and the use of AI in the workplace. What's important to note about these behaviors, Dr. Toole says, is that asking for help for any addiction is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
Many times we think it might be a character flaw or a moral issue, but we really know that's not the case here. You know, this is something that many times is driven by mental health, might be driven by trauma, or maybe it runs in my family like diabetes. So it's not someone's character that's a problem. It's this really disease of addiction.
Dr. Toole says if you feel like you're struggling with any substance use concern and cannot tell a manager, employee assistance programs are a great resource to point you in the right direction.
Well, if they can get that employee help, it's really a win-win situation then for management as well as for the employee to get help.
Now, he does say the main warning sign that it's time to ask for help is if you notice that this is impacting your performance or even your attendance at the office. All right, also topping this half hour, healthy innovations. Miami University recently unveiled a brand new Smart Factory Innovation and Technology Lab. This is video of their main campus, and the new lab is actually designed to support hands-on learning and cutting-edge research in what they call smart manufacturing technology. Miami University officials say the new space will give students the tools they need to lead in high-tech industries, and we of course know those industries continue to change. All right, just ahead, making your skin ready for summer, why a new kind of facial might help and look good, feel better. And Dr. Stephanie Merhar of Cincinnati Children's Hospital in the house. We're going to share some breakthrough baby research. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Life Enriching Communities, NKADD, Hawksworth, and Aptiva Health.
In Look Good, Feel Better today, if the colder months have been hard on your skin, the team at the Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center says you may want to consider what they call a vitamin facial. These facials actually infuse the vitamins right into your skin. As nurse practitioner Hope Mers tells us, those vitamins stick around for a while too.
Your skin actually holds on to these vitamins for up to 6 weeks, and they help protect against free radical damage, so against aging factors and UV radiation.
Now, these can cost about $100 a facial, but if you'd like to find out more about them, you can call the Advanced Cosmetic Surgery Center, 513-351-3223. All right, on now to our wonderful team from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Stephanie Merhar. I'm a professor of pediatrics at Children's, and I'm a neonatologist in our NICU.
So by specialty then, you look at the brain in babies. Is that the right way to describe your profession?
Right, so that's what my research is in. So I see babies clinically. I follow them up to 2 years in our clinic, but my research interest is in babies in prenatal insults on the brain and how they affect later neurodevelopment.
Well, your work is fascinating. We just had a chance to kind of break down a study that she just released, and neonatologists, you being among them, conducted this trial. They were specifically looking at what you called baby brain volume and those exposed to opioids in the womb, and this was compared to those who were not. So watch this. You see, brain volume in a baby, especially at birth, may be a key indicator of how well a baby will develop and how healthy they will be in the future. One of the natologists at Ohio's Cincinnati Children's Hospital, Dr. Stephanie Merhar, is the lead researcher in this trial. The hospital provided this video.
We recruited the babies at birth, and they came in before they were a month old to get a brain MRI. Then we looked at the MRIs between the babies who had prenatal opioid exposure and those who did not.
To be clear, the mothers who participated in the trial were not in active addiction at delivery, but many were in recovery and on medications which assist in sobriety, such as methadone and buprenorphine. Some had also taken opioids for pain management at some points in pregnancy.
So I think that they really wanted to contribute and help other women in the same situation that they were in.
Sure enough, after comparing the scans of the two groups in this trial,
we did find that babies who had prenatal opioid exposure had smaller brains in general than babies who were unexposed.
Now, what makes this study unique is its size. 173 babies were in the study exposed to opioids, 96 were not. That allowed them to rule out other factors that might influence brain size, such as low birth weight or poor nutrition.
Even if you correct for that, their brains are still disproportionately smaller.
Okay, so one of the reasons we wanted to have you back is you learned some things about those medications while you were conducting this trial. And I have a full screen that just tell us methadone versus whatever the others and what you kind of found out about that.
Yeah, so medication for opioid use disorder is the recommended treatment for moms with opioid use disorder in pregnancy, and that's usually methadone or buprenorphine. There is some previous evidence that shows that buprenorphine might affect babies less because they have larger birth weights and larger head circumferences than those exposed to methadone, but we really didn't know about the effects on the brain. And so when we specifically looked at the differences between those, we found that methadone affects the white matter more, which is connections between parts of the brain. And buprenorphine seemed to affect the amygdala more, which is part of the limbic system. It's kind of deep in the brain there, and it does affect substance use and addiction.
So from that, could you draw some conclusions, or are we still learning, or where are we?
I think we're still learning. As we know, these brains are smaller in the newborn period, but the baby brain is so plastic, and things can change a lot over the first 2 years of life or the first 5 years of life. And so we're following the babies up until they're 2 and are looking at developmental assessments and behavior and seeing if what we're seeing here in the newborn period, if it even makes a difference later on.
So one of the reasons I wanted to have you back was I think that these are moms of courage, because I think if you've had any kind of an addiction, it's hard to talk about, let alone say, yes, I'll participate in research and try to find the best for my child. But the other thing that was interesting was you said that some of the moms just had sort of occasional pain medicines. And we all know that pain is your body's way of telling you something's wrong. And I think if you're a mom and you've ever had to take that in a pregnancy, you worry. Did we learn about like some of those occasional uses?
Yeah, so we have a small number of babies in the study, I think 14 of them, who were exposed to other opioids, and those were mostly opioids for pain, so oxycodone, things like that. And compared to the unexposed controls, those babies' brains did not look any different, so as far as the size went. So those were the same as the unexposed controls.
So it seems like treating pain short-term in pregnancy is the right thing to do without an adverse impact.
From what we've seen, yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so on that note then, what I think we don't understand is the concept of brain volume. Like, why is it so important? Why was that your choice? What was it that you were trying to find out?
Well, that's one of the things we're looking at. We're kind of looking at a lot of different things as well, but we know that later on in other populations, the brain volume at birth or in the neonatal period can affect later neurodevelopment. So babies with smaller brains tend to do worse on neurodevelopmental assessments later on. So it's almost a surrogate for brain health and later neurodevelopment.
And what kind of things might that be linked to? Learning disabilities?
Yeah, so learning disabilities, ADHD, autism potentially. So those are all the things that we're looking at.
And we have so many questions about seeing those, and I always think it's a layering process, that there's a number of things that contribute. So in your next steps, are you following? What are we learning? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so we're following this, both groups, the unexposed and the exposed babies, at least until they're 2, hopefully longer. And we're doing actually serial MRIs. So we're doing another MRI when they're about 6 months, and then another one when they're 2. It's hard to get toddlers to sleep in the MRI scanner, but we're trying our best. And we're doing later neurodevelopmental assessments when they're 1, and then when they're 2, we do a full assessment of their cognitive skills, their language skills, and their motor skills. And we'll have those numbers and be able to compare them to the neonatal brain scans.
And when you get those, you will share them first with us, right?
Absolutely.
No, I really feel like that's the value. You know, we're finding out the baseline, but if we don't follow that, we won't learn interventions. All right, final thoughts. What is it that you feel like it's most important to share kind of about what you summarized?
Yeah, I don't want anybody to be discouraged and thinking they shouldn't treat their opioid use disorder, because we know these are evidence-based treatments and it's what's best for mom. And if mom isn't healthy, then baby's definitely not going to be healthy. So I think this just gives us more information so moms can talk to their doctors and figure out which is the best treatment for them.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you for working with a study that really nobody's been able to get this kind of comprehensive information about before. Yeah, pleasure to share your work.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, good to have you. All right, just ahead, how your hearing and your heart may be connected or explained, and listen to this. And it's Mental Health Awareness Month, so we want to welcome Dr. Renee Coatwell and Juliana Tafamambi of Glenwood Behavioral Health Hospital. They are going to help us stay mentally well.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Miami University, the Vein Center of Cincinnati, and Lindner Center of Hope.
Morning once again, and listen to this. A recent study in the journal Heart linked hearing loss to a heightened risk of developing heart failure. We talked to Dr. Matthew Kist of Lund Hearing Care Associates about this study. He's an audiologist who says if you have any doubt about your hearing, get a hearing test. Hearing problems also can lead to social isolation and distress, and that also can contribute to heart failure. Here's some ways this summer to protect your hearing.
So with us being outdoors more often in the spring and summer, concerts are always a big one. Any concert, indoor or outdoor, you should always wear hearing protection, no matter where you're at, where you're sitting or standing, even on the lawn. It's always beneficial to have either foam plugs at the minimum or custom hearing protection, which is usually available through any audiologist.
And in that heart study, researchers looked at more than 160,000 people and found those with poor hearing were up to 28% more likely to have heart failure compared to those who did not have hearing problems or hearing loss. It may be suggested that if you do have a hearing problem, you also get earlier screening for heart failure. Also want to let you know if you do have questions about your hearing, the team at Lund would love to talk to you. 859-342-5846. All right, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we are excited to kick this off with a wonderful team. We've met our good friend Julia, but you brought friends, or Juliana, I should say. Tell us a little bit about, remind us, I guess, should say, what you do at Glenwood Behavioral Health.
So I am Juliana. I am the Director of Clinical Services at Glenwood Behavioral Health. I oversee inpatient and outpatient programs.
And for people not familiar, remind us what Glenwood Behavioral Health is.
So Glenwood Behavioral Health is an 80-bed hospital. We do have inpatient, so that's 80 beds. We see adolescents. We also see adults. We also have outpatient, and I know the last time I was here, I was talking about our intensive outpatient. I am happy to say that we also have started partial hospitalization programs.
Wow. There. You know, I don't know if that's good or not that you're growing so quickly that you have to expand these, but at least people are reaching out for help.
Right.
Which is good to know.
Right.
All right, and you brought friends. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
I'm Dr. Kotwal, Renu Kotwal. I'm a psychiatrist. I've been in this community working as a psychiatrist for many years, since 2002. And I have just joined Glenwood Behavioral Health. Would be starting officially there this 5th, but I've done some other meetings there. And so I'm excited, looking forward to that. I'm at the same time also working in a medical director capacity at another dual diagnosis program in the community. So
there's such a need for your services. We're always sort of talking to people about waiting lists and that kind of thing. We have a little video of Glenwood. This is the kind of the outpatient area. So I guess I'll start with you. What made you say, hey, I'd like to step up in this role, because this hospital has some pretty amazing things?
Right. I was looking at kind of doing something more, and was studying Glenwood. Actually, it's been a year in the making, because I was constantly at their website kind of looking at different things. And I think They had a new CEO come in, and there have been more changes. It has expanded. Their services are there. I enjoy inpatient work. And so I just thought that this would be a very good place to do what I do best, which I do in different places too. But it's a good combination of adult, children, comprehensive team, and they really are evidence-based. And then they are expanding into doing continuity of care into outpatient, PHP, IOP. So it's a very comprehensive care system. And that's what I think that attracted me to them. And also the leadership that they have right now under Dr. Phillip. So
we've met, and so I would agree with you. And one of the things that I think is really interesting is, as I'm watching your model, you're expanding the outpatient as well as the partial hospitalization. And aren't you finding that people are much more receptive, maybe to not being in the hospital full time, but having these options?
Yes, it's always nice when people can come in, get the support that they need. We offer psychotherapy, we manage their medications, and they go home at the end of the day.
And there's no substitute for changing your mindset in the environment where you exist, because if you take people out of that, lots of times, okay, I'm fine, but being able to do that, I think there's some healthy support, don't you, that brings to your life, that structure. Yeah. All right, well, we wanted to hear, because this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think a lot of us don't even realize that we may have some signs. I guess the dominant things we think about are maybe anxiety and depression. And I looked at your website, and we have a full screen that just talks a little bit about some warning signs of depression or anxiety. And I'm looking at, we all have this in our newsroom. So how do you separate, like when you take something like irritability or loss of sleep, where does it become you're not just having a bad day or a couple bad weeks to something that really impacts your health?
Normally we have fluctuations in our moods depending on what's happening in a day, bad traffic, bad interactions at work, etc., etc. However, it doesn't last long. We are able to bounce back. There's the buoyancy to us. We are fine. We are working, and we are able to process and navigate through that. We don't lose our ability to experience joy. We don't lose our ability to have our relationships going, or a performance at work, or concentration, our sleep, our appetite. Those are some of the vegetative symptoms, that tend to get affected when the depression becomes more than what's a normal variation. And so very nicely, DSM-5, which is now text revised, has very nicely listed the criteria for depression, which you just showed some of them. So one of them being a subjective. I just feel like I'm not myself. I just feel just so blah. Somebody's inviting me to a party, I just don't want to go. I don't like meeting people. I get irritable, So subjective feeling of a depressed mood, loss of pleasure in activities, anhedonia. And then along with that, one or two of these, along with that, you have to have total of 5 symptoms. So some of the other symptoms are difficulty with concentration, attention, psychomotor agitation or retardation, lack of appetite or increased appetite, irritability, hopelessness, helplessness, suicidal ideations. So, there's a collective, there's an array of symptoms. But the symptoms have to be more than what is usual, present for most of the day than not, present for 2 weeks consecutively at a stretch, at that intensity. And then there are other things that you have to look at, that it does affect your functioning. So there's affecting your relationships, affecting your ability to relate to people, friendships, your social and occupational functioning. There may be absenteeism, you get up, you don't want to go to work, motivation is low, that is there. And then in addition to that, you have to make sure that just for a psychiatric major depression, just without any other things, there is no medical factor like a hypothyroidism or something like that,
rule out
or a brain
physical
injury or something that could be contributing to that, or there isn't schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, that this is part of that. So to diagnose just major depressive disorder, single episode or recurrent, there have to be certain things that you have to rule out and then work on that.
Which I think is important that you have that. All right, we want to put up a phone number. When should people call you?
They can call us anytime. We are open 24/7. So it's not just about calling to schedule an appointment. You can do a walk-in. because again, we're a 24/7 hospital, so anytime, feel free to call, feel free to come to our hospital for an assessment, for an evaluation, and then we will determine the level of care for you, whether you need inpatient or outpatient level of care.
And I love that people see your face so they know who they might be talking to. Those things matter. We do appreciate that you just raise awareness in our community. Great to have you back, and we'll continue the conversation.
Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah,
Yes,
thanks for
thank
being
you.
here today.
Yeah.
All right, just ahead, is there really a better arm to get your shot? We're going to share some new research in Your Healthy Rights. And we want to welcome Darcy Gibson. She is back with some wonderful people here. You see it there, looking for living kidney donators. We'll meet them coming up next on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Network for Hope, William E. Hesh Law, and Serene Sweets.
In You're So Vain today, that alcohol intake could be playing a role in your vascular health, especially in your brain. New study published in Neurology explored the impact of alcohol consumption on various aspects of the brain, especially dementia-related problems. It found that moderate, heavy, and former heavy drinking all were associated with a distinct thickening and narrowing of the blood vessels that can happen as we age. And former heavy drinking was also linked to having a lower brain mass ratio, as well as poorer cognitive abilities compared to those who were never drinkers. While more research is needed on this, the results do indicate the possible damaging effect of alcohol on the brain. In Your Healthy Rights, you have the right to know this: which arm you choose to get your vaccine could make a difference. And no, it's not about getting the shot in the dominant arm. A study by the Garvan Institute found if you get a booster vaccine in the same arm as your first dose, the immune response happens quicker, often within the first week. But after just a few weeks, those level out. You'll have the same protection. So if you didn't choose the proper arm, don't sweat it. You can still get those vaccines in whatever arm is best for you. All right, just ahead, your blood donations really needed this time of year. We meet our donor of the week coming up, making a difference for others. And you're invited to a spring gala. We're going to meet this team from the Alzheimer's Association, Eric Knapp and Karen Oldberding, both here to help in supporting our community. We'll tell you how coming up on What's Happening in Health.
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by TriHealth.
Welcome back, everybody, to our third half hour here on What's Happening in Health. Super grateful that you are staying with us here. We have some great teams in-house to share hope and healing today. Sydney and Corey are here, and Cindy needs a living donor. She's here with her husband Brian and Darcy Gibson from Off the List, and we are going to talk a little bit more. I should say Sydney Corey is here. We're going to talk to them and have a story of inspiration. We hope that you'll stay with us to hear it today. And spring is in the air, and that means it is time for the annual Spring Gala with the Cincinnati chapter of the Alzheimer's Association. We welcome the 2025 Gala Vice Chair, Eric Knapp. We're breaking him in. And we brought back Karen Oldberding. She was with us last year, you may recall. They're going to share more on how they change lives. But first, a quick headline for you today. A group of virologists around the world sounding the alarm on bird flu. The Global Virus Network says H5N1, which has spread to millions of birds and at least 70 humans, requires proactive surveillance. The group is concerned that as the current administration has cutbacks in health, we won't have enough experts to track disease outbreaks in the U.S. The U.S. saw its first human bird flu death earlier this year. The concern is that this virus could mutate. TriHealth infectious disease specialist told us this about that.
We certainly would not have immunity to it, and if it mutated to the point where it was easily transmitted from human to human, it could spread through the human population very quickly. And if it was a severe kind of flu virus, a lot of people would get very ill.
So to protect against it, you want to only eat pasteurized dairy products. You need to refrigerate and cook your food properly, especially eggs, meat, and poultry. You want to protect and vaccinate your pets. Believe it or not, pets can get bird flu. And make sure you wash your hands whenever possible. All All right, on now to our Ask a Nurse segment, where we are asking about concerns with ChatGPT, especially in teens. Artificial intelligence, such as ChatGPT for schoolwork, has more than doubled among teens since 2023. National survey from the Pew Research Center found that 26% of teens have used ChatGPT. Researchers from the University of Michigan Health CS Mott Children's Hospital say while AI can be useful for teens at school, some uses can also be harmful or unethical.
People who are using generative AI find benefits to be things like productivity. It's much faster to create a PowerPoint or summarize an email when you're using a generative AI tool. However, the downsides include skipping corners and not going through the mental work of researching and analyzing material for yourself. If students are just copying and pasting what they find in ChatGPT, it means both the risk of plagiarism, but also that they're not actually learning from the process of doing the work themselves.
Researchers also warn about AI companions, which also we know can make a difference in people attempting to pursue a relationship with a user, and it may have sexualized content. All right, finally topping this half hour, our donor of the week. We highlight a local man who donated blood for the first time. We want you to meet Lamont Green, who spent some time, or at least some of his free time, giving back to those in need at one of Hawksworth's mobile units here downtown. He says the gifts are a plus, but doing it for a good cause is really what makes it special.
My mom was had breast cancer, so that's a good cause, you know. And I have a heart for people with breast cancer and cancer, so it made me feel great, you know, that I can do something to help people in need.
Blood and blood products are used for cancer patients, and if you donate this month, that jacket that this guy's wearing here may be yours, and you can get, they call it the quarter zip. It celebrates FC Cincinnati. There's also a drive going on at TQL Stadium coming up. That's on Tuesday, May the 20th, runs from 10 to 4. And if you'd like more information about donating, or you can make an appointment, 513-451-0910. All right, just ahead, cooking up goodness, food full of nutrients that you need to stay well as you age. And we're going to meet Sydney, Brian, and Darcy. They're going to talk about the gift of life. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion is sponsored by Good Samaritan College of Nursing and Health Science and the Mental Health Recovery Board of Warren and Clinton Counties.
In aging gracefully, if you want to try a food packed full of many nutrients that we need as we age, you might want to consider hummus. Chef Ruben showed us this at Life Enriching Communities. That's at the Twin Towers location. Hummus is a spread made from chickpeas. These are also called garbanzo beans. They have a good plant protein as well as fiber, iron, magnesium, all nutrients to help us age. He served it under salmon and couscous, and those eating it had this to say.
I like these vegetables. I'm not so much for the hummus, but it has a different, base for it. I'm enjoying it. I wouldn't have chosen it. So I've learned a new taste with the hummus.
Oh, I love hummus. All right, Life Enriching Communities has wellness programs open to the community. You can find out more at 877-532-1899. Well, on now to our wonderful friends from Off the List. We love Darcy, and we know you brought some wonderful new people with you. Let's start with you. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Brian Corey.
And you are friend of?
Husband of.
Husband of.
Friend too? Yes.
Sydney. Sydney Corey.
And you've been faithfully holding that sign. You are her champion, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about what is Off the List, and this is one of your newest teams.
Yeah, so Off the List, we exist to help people like Sydney and Brian and their family help them get the tools they need to help find living donors to help save a life.
So we always say no small thing to have to ask someone for something that could save your life.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So can you share a little bit of your journey, how long you've been on this, that kind of thing?
Well, my journey was actually brought on suddenly back in December. It was a lovely Christmas Eve gift. We found out that I needed a kidney. And prior to that, I had no known kidney disease.
So did something start happening? Did you notice symptoms or what?
I'm asymptomatic. for the most part. I went in for some testing and came back that I had some things wrong. So we checked it out, and it turns out I have a genetic kidney disease that I'm the first in my family to have.
So tell us just a little bit about that then. Are they kind of monitoring your kidney health now, or?
Yes, monitoring it now. I see doc regularly, monthly, have monthly blood draws and everything, and they're monitoring it. I'm stable for now, so we're hopefully can stay off dialysis and just get to the transplant. That's the hope.
And of course, one of the things you find out is this is something that impacts the whole family.
Oh, yes.
I know you guys have kind of an inspiring story. Tell us a little bit about you and your support for her and that kind of thing.
Just anything that's asked of, she gets. We've changed our eating habits to align better with what she needs.
And you're the champion cheerleader, aren't you?
I try my best.
Putting the word out there. Yeah. So Darcy, let's talk a little bit. We have some photos of them, but let's talk a little bit about Off the List. What do people need to know about kind of just reaching out, that kind of thing?
I think, what we want people to know is that it's people like Sydney are sick. Even though they may not have a lot of symptoms and they're not on dialysis, their kidneys are not working. So it's a life or death situation, and we need for people to step up and see if they could potentially be a donor. And that typically starts with an easy phone call. Sometimes it can be a cheek swab, sometimes it's blood work. And then they just start going through the process to see, if they could be that perfect person to give her life. Living donors can live a full and healthy life with one kidney, and they can have children after they donate a kidney, and they don't have special medicines or diets and things like that. So you can do it and still do everything that you love to do, but save a life while you're living.
So has it been an interesting time, even when you start talking about this? Number one, how many people know someone who may have been impacted by something like yours?
Yes, I've found that out a lot recently. Even just in my daily life, it's like, I know somebody who's had this, and we know somebody who just had a kidney transplant, and they're doing fantastic, so there is hope out there. Hope has been the biggest thing that I've had come across.
Yeah, you always think you're alone until you're in a health journey and you realize how many lives have been impacted in a similar way.
Yeah.
So as her champion, what should we know about her?
Honestly, she's the glue that keeps our family together. She keeps everything organized and planned. I'm fairly certain the house would burn down without her.
Every family needs some glue.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so we have a graphic with, I believe, the same number that you have there. Let's talk about a little bit about what do you tell people if they say, hey, call this number, what do you want them to know?
Oh, that's a good question. Call this number. I mean, it would save my life. It would give me time and to be with my family and to do the things I love to do. I'm a big advocate in the community, volunteering. It's just give me time and hope.
So you know what? It's nice to hear that because you've given for a long time, and I think it's exceptionally hard for people who've given a lot to ask when they need help.
Yes.
Don't you find that? Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is very humbling.
Very.
Yes.
And we all need help. I mean, we don't think we do until something happens, but we do. And that's why there's amazing organizations like Darcy's. So, all right, final word. If somebody's interested in being her donor, let's just real quick tell them what we can do, what they need to know, that kind of thing.
Well, we encourage you to call the number. We also encourage you to follow her page on Facebook, A Kidney for Sydney, and help share that, because sharing is huge. It only takes a few seconds to share, but you could share with the person that might be called and feel led to help Sydney.
And you only need one.
Right?
You only need one.
Yeah.
Share your spare.
Yes.
There's the motto. All right, well, we will be putting the word out there. We'll put you on our prayer list. We're so grateful to have you in studio. We love what you do, and we love that you're here. I know it's humbling, and we're grateful that you shared it with us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next, some new numbers just released on Alzheimer's disease, and it is really taking a toll on families. But lucky for us, we have Eric and Karen in-house. They're going to tell us how we can support those living with this disease. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Audiology, the Center for Closing the Health Gap, and Journey Light.
In Healthy Caregiving today, the number of Americans living with Alzheimer's disease has now risen to 7 million.
My brain doesn't go as fast as it used to be. I know what I want to say, but it doesn't come out right.
Greg Donato was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 8 years ago. His short-term memory and language have been impacted the most. He's 76 years old and a father and grandfather, and just finished 18 months of an infusion therapy called Leqembi. It targets and removes beta amyloid from the brain in hopes of slowing the progression of this disease. Greg's tests do show improvement.
He continues to be blessed with the symptoms staying as mild as possible. I mean, I know what it could become, and I try not to go that place.
My grandchildren, that's the way I live. I live for them.
New report from the Alzheimer's Association shows if diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, 83% of those surveyed would be willing to participate in a clinical trial for treatment. The vast majority would also make lifestyle changes to slow progression. Studies fueling the push to develop a blood test to detect Alzheimer's risk. Well, that's quite the lead-in. You guys got some news this week.
Yeah.
We should really say here. Hello to you. Tell us who you are.
I'm Eric Knapp. I work at Western Southern, but I'm co-chair of this year's Alzheimer's Association Gala.
We're familiar with the gala because you came to join us.
We did.
You call it the Spring Gala?
The Spring Gala. And this year our tagline is, "And we're off." It's a derby-themed event. Obviously, that's why I have the fascinator on. So, yeah.
We just thought maybe you liked wearing those. And I have to tell you, I was like, wow, I think he may be the most dressed up guest I've ever interviewed. And you look charming.
It's derby attire.
We appreciate that. That's a fun theme. That's nice
Yes.
that, I love that this is a tough disease, but that you celebrate life.
Exactly.
Having been to your gala, it's pretty amazing. Let's talk about you. You got involved with this because?
Sure. So I'm fortunate that I work at Western Southern, one of the sponsors, as well as our subsidiary, Fort Washington Investment Advisors. Some associates there, as well as friends from around the community, had recruited me to be on the gala committee 2 years ago, and so here I am. It's been a wonderful, wonderful group of dedicated individuals, but also it's very personal for all of us in a unique way. That's sort of what binds us all. My father was diagnosed about 2 years ago, and so it is personal. We share that bond. But this is also one step, even though he's a few states away, it's one step that I can help with the cause.
And you know what? Thank you for giving back, because you could kind of climb in and kind of be in the background and just not say anything. And I'm sure it's hard and humbling, as we've talked about. So may I ask what you've learned since you've had this in your family that sort of you find yourself sharing with people?
Actually, a lot of laughs because we're seeing a side of my father that I didn't necessarily see for a long time. A very kind, not that he was not unkind, but it's just a kind person. Stories, but also just how helpless we can seem, but together, collaboratively and collectively, it has brought us all together. Even my father, who may or may not know who we are sometimes or what he's doing in his day. It's a graced opportunity, right?
Yeah, very much so. Well, I know that you had the privilege of sort of letting us know about this event last year, and even though you passed the torch, you're willing to talk about it. So let's put up some photos of your event, and let's just have you talk about the night, how you celebrate, how you uplift people that have this in their family, that kind of thing.
Well, this is obviously from last year. It's myself and the actual chairperson this year, Elizabeth Bangel-Stalin, and our executive director, Anne-Marie Barnett. It was a Great Gatsby theme last year, which was a blast. And this year, as I said, it's a derby theme. We've got silent auction, lots of silent auction. That's what I'm in charge of this year. We are doing, of course, the paddle race. And as part of that, we do a last bidder where we are bidding on a bottle of Honorum wine, which is from Round Pond, and it honors and supports Alzheimer's. Let's see. What
I always love about those is you can get a wide variety of all kinds of gifts and things that you wouldn't ever go into the store and
Right.
buy, but they're together, wrapped up in baskets of love.
Yeah, our two big auction items this year are an ATV trip to West Virginia. It's a 3-day trip, 3 nights, 2 days. It includes a cabin for 8 and a 2-day rental of a 4-seater ATV.
Wow.
And then we're also auctioning off a trip to Napa, wine country. I got 8 wineries to donate wine tastings and bottles of wine from their wineries. And then we also, as part of that, $1,000 worth of Visa gift cards to help offset the plane and hotel trip.
Wow, my
there.
goodness.
So those are our two big ones.
Have you not been amazed that when you started sharing with people this is what you're doing, the generosity of
Yes.
people and how it sort of touches every life?
It is, and you hit on this at the beginning of the segment, and that is, it is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of the progress that Alzheimer's has made with some of these advances with medications, but also the blood testing and things. And We're Off represents, we've just getting started and getting to that end where we live in a world without Alzheimer's and dementia.
You know, that's really important because without what you are doing at this level, we don't ever raise those funds to start with those treatments or to get those blood tests, and they really matter.
They do.
So let's first let people know when and where and how do we connect with you if we want to get tickets or support you or make donations, that kind of thing.
The event is actually next Thursday, May the 8th at Music Hall. It starts at 5:30. And you can go to alzheimers.org/Cincinnati. And the ticket information is on our website there. It's going to be a great night, lots of fun, lots of tears because we have a lot of emotional stories that are going to be told of people that are actually suffering through the disease and stories of caregivers and what they went through. So it's going to be a great night.
Yeah, there's a saying that you're either going to be a caregiver or you are a caregiver, in your life. So, all right, well, we'll put a link to all that information.
Thank you.
Final word, what is it that you find yourself kind of repeatedly sharing that you say, hey, we need to let you know this?
We can all do this. We can all do this.
Can I mention one thing? One thing the Alzheimer's Association has is a lot of educational programs. So if you are finding yourself as a caregiver or you are suffering from the disease, you can get in contact with the Alzheimer's Association and take advantage of all the free programs that they offer.
And they offer them free because you guys do stuff like this, which supports the program. So very good point. Excellent. Hey, we're grateful to share your work. We look forward to following up and hoping to meet that $1 million plus goal.
We're getting there.
Yeah. I know it's lofty, but you know.
We're getting there.
Yeah, good work. All right, nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
All right, just ahead, some weight loss drugs that you've been hearing about. Well, there's something that you might want to know about who's receiving them. We'll share it in Healthy Diversity.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Mount St. Joseph University, Elder Law Lawyers, and Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center.
I want to leave you with a couple health headlines. The first is in Healthy Diversity today. More and more people are using popular weight loss drugs, but there are disparities in how these are being given out. A study published in JAMA found socially disadvantaged people, people of color, and those living in rural areas are less likely to be prescribed these weight loss drugs. The study says more needs to be done to make sure access is equal for everyone. Also in Gut Instinct today, yet another way that your gut is connected to your good health. A new global study links consuming ultra-processed foods with preventable premature deaths. It shows in countries such as the U.S., where consumption is high, the foods cause as many as 14% of premature deaths. The researchers are calling for revised dietary guidelines and public policies in hopes of changing that. You're looking, of course, at what some of those processed foods actually are. All right, we also want to leave you today with a little bit about our life expectancy as a follow-up to this. In the U.S., it has increased greatly in the 20th century, but it's lagging behind in some parts of the country. Separate study found while states such as New York have people living up to 20 years longer than they did in the 1900s, in many southern states, lifespan has only increased by 2 to 3 years. Differences in wealth and public health policy, researchers say, may be the cause. All right, that is it for What's Happening in Health this week. We are back same time next week. We hope that you will be too. Until then, everybody stay well and stay tuned.